Can everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Fantastic, that's good. Oh, it's so nice to see everyone's faces. If anyone's been here before, you'll know that we haven't normally done it like this. So it's really lovely to see you all. I hope you're all well. But welcome to our medieval art event. So I'm Ginny and I'm from Dig Ventures. We're a crowd-funded archaeology group who do digs all around the UK and sometimes a little bit further afield as well. And this time, our team are back on site at a place called Bishop Midlam. That's a village in County Durham, and there's a bishop's palace there that we're excavating. This is all being done as part of the Discover Brightwater project. This is a wide programme of events and projects, all intended to revitalise, restore and celebrate life around the River Skerne, which is up in the north. And these sites have some amazing archaeology, so that's where we come in. For anyone who's interested in nature or history or walking, I definitely recommend it. It's really good. And you can find all of it on discoverbrightwater.com. But I'll remind you of that link at the end, don't worry. You don't need to write it down now. So you'll see today that I am actually joined by Aaron. So if I get Aaron up, before we get started, Aaron should be able to speak now. There we go. Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm really excited to be taking you through a bit of a art exercise where we're going to be drawing ourselves into a medieval tapestry, and we're going to combine some of the elements from like some of the tapestries I've looked at, which I'll show you. And we're going to have one really exciting element, which the Dig Ventures guys are going to be showing us in a minute, and we're going to draw that in too. So yeah, I'm really excited to do this with you.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm really excited for you to be here. So yeah, Aaron's our artist. And like you said, we're here to do some medieval art. But before we kick off, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So if I share my screen really quickly, here we go. Hopefully you can all see that. Give me a thumbs up if it's working. Perfect. So this is just for anyone who's not used Zoom before or has not been to any of our events. If you have, I'm sure you've had it before. But just a reminder for everyone to be friendly. You can see there's the chat feature on the right, and we can all see you today, obviously, as well. So remember to all be nice to each other, but do use it because we really like to hear from you. If you have any comments or anything, any questions, while I'm doing a bit of a history lesson later, drop it in there and I'll do my best to answer it for you. Also, please be patient with us. Zoom is very exciting, but it can also be very difficult, and sometimes things go a little bit wrong, or the audio is a bit fuzzy, or the visuals are a bit fuzzy. We'll do our best to get it fixed as soon as possible, but we ask that you please be patient with us while we do so. I've already said, feel free to use the chat. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just too excited for this medieval art, but you'll see it's on the right of your screen. And of course, most importantly, have fun, because this is a really exciting event and we can't wait to share it with you. It's going to be fantastic, I think. So before we kick off, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little look at the site, and then I'm going to talk to you a bit about who the Prince Bishops are before we dive into our art. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we've actually got a really exciting video filmed directly from site by one of our archaeologists. So I'll share my screen for you now. Do let me know if you can't hear it, but let's have a look at our site. Here we go. Hopefully you can all see this.
Hello everybody from Bishop Midlam Castle in County Durham. I am coming to you from our 6th and final week here digging on this site. It's an exceptional morning. It's going to be a beautiful, bright and sunny day. So I thought I'd give you a quick tour around what we've been doing here over the past few weeks and what we've got left to wrap up in the last few days. Now let me show you the site here. We're in a really beautiful spot. We're high up on this rocky plateau, a natural outcrop. It gives us absolutely spectacular views of all the countryside around us. You might just be about to hear the A1 rattling along in the background. But obviously before that was there, we're in this beautiful spot where we can see everything in the surrounding area, and more importantly be seen by everybody else as they're approaching the site as well. So we're right up high keeping an eye on everything. And you can see that we've got these quite steep slopes that run off on all three sides, apart from the north entrance to the site here, which runs off into the present day village. So what they've done here is they've used the natural layout of the ground to position themselves up high. Even though we call this Bishop Midlam Castle, we don't really think it would have been fortified and defended in the same way as an actual castle that saw battle, but they accentuated the natural features of the landscape probably by building a big curtain wall all the way around the edge of the site to contain the little village of buildings and activity that would have happened inside the walls. Here you can see a chunk of it left. But really there's not a lot that remains above ground. So it's our job, obviously, as archaeologists to have a little look under the ground and see what we can see. And that's what we've been doing. We've opened up 2 trenches. So let's come and have a look what we're doing over here. Opened it all up by hand, by shovel, which was a long and slightly painful process. But we have found a lot in the last few weeks of what we've been doing. So we've got David and Ben over here. Hello! In trench 4 this is, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And you can see our main find so far has been walls and walls and walls. The labyrinth of Bishop Midlam. Ben, what do you think's going on here?
Oh, I wish I knew, to be honest, right now. There's so many walls. They just keep popping up everywhere. Yesterday I found another wall. The day before that I found a wall, and they just keep turning up. And our challenge in this trench is to try and figure out what these walls all mean. Which ones came first, what part of the phase of the building are they related to, and what dates does that represent. So what we try to do is figure out which walls join into which, to try and get a kind of an outline of the building and get an idea of the phasing of them. At the minute, I'm just trying to dig out some of the rubble around about the wall, try and expose a bit more of it, see if we can get any evidence for it underneath, maybe some dating evidence and nice finds that will help us to build up that picture of what wall was here when.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the struggle for the next few days, figuring that out. So yeah, lots of walls.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, it's a bit of a maze to unpick and tangle. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, guys. Keep going. So yeah, like Ben was saying, our job is to really unpick what's happened at this site at various times, because of course it doesn't just exist as one single moment in time. People have been doing things here for hundreds of years, so we're trying to understand the order of events that happened. And in doing that, sometimes we dig a really big hole to see all those different layers of activity that have stacked up over time. And along the way we found some things, of course. I'm going to take you over here for a little quick whistle-stop tour of some of our finds. Oh, there's a tiny bunny hiding under the wheelbarrow. Did you see that? That was very sweet. We're contending with sheep and things here as well. The lambs like to come and investigate our trenches. So, what have we found along the way? The kind of holy grail, the holy trinity of medieval finds on an archaeological site. Of course, tons and tons of animal bone. We know they would have been keeping and eating animals on this site. We have lots of stone structures, but of course there will be wood also, so we have tons and tons of iron nails. And another thing we get a lot of course, is lovely pottery, which is really useful for us because that can specifically help us to date those different layers of activity to give us a sense of when in time things happened. So you can see that we've got a nice bit of handle there. A lot of this is that very nice and attractive green glaze medieval pottery that's got that lovely shiny green surface to it. And we bag these things up carefully, label them from what layer, what context of the archaeology they came from, and then we analyse them at a later date. And really our star find, although I have to admit it's not from this year, but from 2 years ago when we were here, this wonderful bit of window tracery. Gives you a sense of the kind of the scale and the beauty of the architectural design that would have been in many elements of these buildings. And also just look at the size of it, it's just absolutely huge. It took about 4 of us to lift this out of the trench in 2019. Absolutely massive. But we don't really have a lot of the window glass and window lead that would have gone into this wonderful window frame. They were very, very good at stripping it out quite systematically of the whole site. That's what we're seeing, that there's really not a huge amount of material culture left. So I think that's it. I think that's your whistle-stop tour, really, for the day. Hopefully that's given you a quick oversight of what we've been up to over the last few weeks. And of course, at the end of the dig, we'll fill all the holes back in, and then we'll get analysing all of those finds and looking at all the recording that we've done on site, and hopefully be able to piece together a story of what happened here at Bishop Midlum Castle. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
There we go. So that was just a quick look at our site. Like we said, we've been digging the site for weeks now, and I can actually say the trenches are going to be closed up at the end of this week. We're really sad to say goodbye, but we've had an amazing time. And like Jodie was pointing out, this is a grand bishop's palace, just like the one you can see behind me, sort of. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about that in a minute, but of course our bishop's palaces would have been full of art, and that's one reason why we're here today, because we're going to try and recreate some of that art that would be hanging in there. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the history of the bishop's palaces quickly before we jump into the art. So you should all be able to see my PowerPoint here. Let me just get the chat up so I can all hear from you as well. Hi from North Lincolnshire. I'm from Lincolnshire myself. Good to see that. So we've seen our amazing site. Let's jump into the story of the Prince Bishops. Who were they and why did they build these big palaces? So we're here in County Durham in northern England. You can see it highlighted up there. It's 1075 in the medieval times, and County Durham's in a bit of a tricky situation because you can see it's quite far up north. So it's pretty far away from other places in England, and it's far away from where the king lives. So the king was King William I, also known as William the Conqueror, quite famous guy. And he won the Battle of Hastings, obviously in the south of England, but that was a bit of a problem that he didn't see, because you see the north of England didn't support him. And his solution was, unfortunately, to lay waste to the north of England. And so we know from the Domesday Book that he did this. There were animals, land, people, lots of people suffered, and it had consequences because with such a depleted presence in the north, Scotland became a major threat to England. There was a lot of unrest at this time between Scotland and England because they were two separate kingdoms. And so there was a lot of fighting at the border. William was quite busy. He lived in the south. He wanted to expand his estates in France, so he stayed down there. And the damage to the north meant that he kind of wanted to avoid it. He wasn't very popular there, but he decided he needed to establish some sort of buffer state to protect himself from Scotland. So here's the man himself, a nice portrait of him. Let's consider what he's thinking. So you're a medieval king. Your kingdom shares a border with another state, and you want to make sure that security is really solid. How can you do this if you live so far away? Well, William asked himself this question, and he put his thinking cap on. He's looking very, very studious there. And he realized that there was actually a solution. If he gave the Bishop of Durham secular powers, he could create a virtually autonomous northern state. So a state that could defend his rule and look after itself, and it would be loyal to him. So it ticks all the boxes for him. And so he did. He created the title of the Prince Bishop, and he was pretty chuffed with himself. You can see his quite creepy grin. It's quite scary, actually. And the Prince Bishop came to be. First Prince Bishop was called William Walcher, and after that, the title was passed down from Prince Bishop to Prince Bishop, kind of like you would a king, until it was abolished in 1836. So it was around for quite a long time, this title. But what made a Prince Bishop so special? Well, we mentioned that William granted them secular powers. That means they could raise armies, they could mint coins, and they could raise taxes. Before this, these were all things that were reserved just for the king. So this really shows how much power William was handing over here. The Prince Bishop actually became so powerful that people used to say there are two kings in England. There is the king in the north and the king in the south. Sounds very Game of Thrones, I think, but it just goes to show. And of course, with all this power comes a lot of wealth. And these bishops wanted to show off this wealth, so they built their palaces. There were around 300 bishops' palaces in England and Wales, and 18 of them were in County Durham. So the Prince Bishop had 18. I'm saying palaces, houses, but these also included things like parks and hunting lodges. It took a lot to run this sort of lifestyle. What did they look like? Well, there are some medieval bishops' palaces that still survive today. You can see some here. They look kind of varied. Some were more like fortified castles, others were more ecclesiastical or like monasteries or churches, and others were smaller but still quite grand. This one, which is the same one that was behind me earlier, is built in Wells in the 12th century. So that's about the same time as the one that we're digging at Bishop Midland. That was built in the 12th century too. Over the centuries, this one here has been changed, it's been added to, but it gives us a bit of an idea of what we might be looking for. And of course, you'll see there's that window tracery that Jodie pointed out there as well. Another example is this palace at Bishop Auckland. This is also in County Durham. This is a drawing of what it might have looked like. It's pretty big, isn't it? You can see there's a chapel up here to the north. There's living quarters for the bishop. There's a great hall. And there's all these buildings out here that make up the estate as well. Because the bishops would have had servants, they would have had staff, other religious figures that would have traveled with them as they moved from house to house. So there's a lot of people to look after, and there's a lot of land to look after too that comes with these houses. Here's a closer look at the chapel area. I want you to pay particular attention to the interior. So you can see all the colors, the tiles on the floor and the stained glass. It's all very grand. So keep that in mind, because we'll be coming back to that later. And finally, here's a drawing of what our bishop's palace might have looked like. You can see it's a lot smaller than the one we were just looking at. But I will note that this drawing was done before anyone had really dug here properly, before anyone had done any archaeology here. So while it's a pretty good guess, it's probably quite different to what it actually looked like. And that's one reason why it's so important that we're here today. This is a nice sunny day on site, you can see it. One of the questions that we're aiming to answer as we dig here is what this palace might have looked like. And that's something that archaeology can only tell us, because there's not any record surviving really. Anyway, we have our fancy prince bishops, and they've got their fancy houses, but what things would they have had? What sort of things might they have had inside? They would have had their art, and so it all loops round. So the bishops would have decorated their palaces with all sorts of beautiful art, just like we saw at Bishop Auckland. And this was a bit of a statement, really. You wouldn't be able to afford this stuff unless you had the money for it. So by putting it in your house, you're showing off. The types of art we see are quite varied. Let's start with manuscripts. So these are handwritten books or documents. Obviously, before printers are around, everything was written by hand. And in medieval times, particularly important documents or books would have been decorated with these nice drawings and motifs. You can see them in front of you here. This task mainly fell to the monks because there wasn't a lot of literacy back then. So not many people could read and write, and the monks could. So they did a lot of this. Sometimes they borrowed books, they swapped them, and they wrote out each other's books, and then they gave them back. Unfortunately, not a lot of manuscripts survive because they're prone to damage, things like fire, but there are still some out there that you can go and see in museums. So here's some more examples. You can see there's these beautiful letters, there's all these nice borders, lots of flowers, patterns, and lots of people. And you can see the people have got that really weird cartoonish style that is so typical of medieval art, but I think in its own way, it's quite beautiful. So keep an eye out for that, because that's going to be a key theme. Here's something that I just had to include because I think it's so funny. One great mystery of manuscripts is the knights who fight snails. So we don't know why, but this happens quite a lot. I like to think maybe it was the first ever meme, but I don't think anyone really knows for sure. Someone might know in the comments, but very interesting, I think. Next up, we have tapestries. So wall tapestries are fabric hangings that were hung up in castles or churches, really important buildings. They were woven together and they show scenes from history or from the Bible. Sometimes kings would even have them commissioned in order to show off events that they'd taken part in, like battles, for example. And it was sort of a statement. All of this art is a statement, but that was a particular statement. Because they were fabric, they could be rolled up and you could transport them quite easily. So that made them more popular than things like paintings back then. Plus, they have the added benefit of acting as insulation. You have these thick stone walls, heat leaks out quite quickly, but if you slap a tapestry on it, it keeps it quite well insulated. And because of that, they hung around for quite a long time. Pardon the pun. They were quite popular. So you can see this one here, we have this image of Jesus Christ embroidered into the fabric. And you can see all these wonderful details like here and in the background. And again, that strange cartoonish style of drawing. This is, although I say this is a tapestry, this is a bit of a trick tapestry. So this isn't actually for a wall, this is actually part of a piece of clothing. It's really gorgeous. But as well, what's really interesting about it is there's a name stitched into it, John of Thanet. And he was a monk who lived around 1315. So really interestingly, we can date this piece from the name that was stitched into it, which I think is quite cool. This one is called the 9 Heroes Tapestry because there are 9 heroes on it. It was woven in around 1400 and it features biblical heroes like David and Joshua, historical celebrities like Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar, and also stars of myths and legends like King Arthur. And you can see here, there's even a panel cut out for a door. So this tapestry has been specifically designed for a room with a door there. This is another one, which is quite good for showing us how they would have hung up. So you can see there's a pole up here. So this is how they would sort of be displaying them. This is my favorite. You can see here, there's an angel sat on a horse and it's got some beautiful details. So you can see the bridle and the reins of the horse are really lovely. And then there's the lute and the angel up here with his wings and he's got a halo. And I can imagine the green of his clothing would have looked really lovely back in its prime. And then we have creatures on our tapestries. This one's quite a weird one. I don't know if anyone can spot what kind of creature this is. It doesn't look very accurate, but this is actually a lion. Because back then, obviously, not everyone would have seen a lion. So a lot of these creatures that they're drawing, they're basing on things that other people have written down or told them. So I think all in all, not a bad attempt, but it's a really interesting look at how people are interpreting these things. And onto architectural art, our final type of art. So buildings would have been really heavily decorated, especially buildings like our palace. These sort of artistic decorations and buildings, they were reserved just for ecclesiastical buildings or palaces, you know, the really important people, like we were saying before. And again, think back to that image of Bishop Auckland, we could see all that color in that drawing. So this one here, for example, this lovely chapel, and you can see there's figures in the room painted everywhere, angels and people from the Bible. And in that same room, here's a close-up of that window. You can see they've painted, you can see the figures on either side. There's some sort of building that frames the window. And then the way they've painted it really exaggerates those architectural features, really makes them pop. It's quite nice, actually. They would have painted their ceilings too. This is a really lovely one. You can see there's these women playing instruments, and interwoven are these nice borders and these patterns and these creatures. Really interesting one. And this is another way they might have painted their ceilings maybe. So you can see we've got these patterns, this vegetation, flowers, and then of course this heraldry, coats of arms. So you might have put this in your house, you know, as a sort of signature, a stamp. This is my house. And these are floor tiles. So again, going back to that Bishop Auckland drawing, we saw that there were floor tiles in there. You can see on here, there's all sorts of creatures. And in the bottom corner here, you can see more of those cartoonish people. We're going to come back to that with Aaron, because that's the sort of thing we're going to be looking at today. Exciting. And like Jodie said, on site, we found that gorgeous window tracery. And you can see what it would have looked like in action here. So this was from a Gothic architecture. So you've probably seen this in churches and cathedrals today. A lot of it still survives. Really beautiful. And like Jodie said, this is the one that we found on site. So this sort of architecture is from the 12th century, and it was popular up until like the 16th century, mainly reserved for churches, but it was on other things like castles, universities, guild halls, things like that. So what are the common things that we've seen here? Your medieval art starter kit, as it was. So we've had colour, bold patterns, a cartoonish style, animals and creatures, and most importantly, people. again, we're coming back to that. But I think it's a really nice look into medieval art. I think when we look back at the medieval times, a lot of people assume it's quite grey, but it's not. It's really colourful and exciting. And on that note, I'm now going to pass over to Aaron, who's going to show us just how exciting it is and have us make some of our own. I'm really excited. I hope you enjoyed that. So if Aaron comes back onto our screens, let's kick off some of our art now. Hi, Aaron. There he is. Hope everyone's
Oh, hi. So yeah, I've been studying these medieval tapestries now for a couple of weeks, and I'm really excited to help you guys make your own illustration that's going to essentially have like you in a drawing that's in the style of a medieval tapestry. And if you haven't drawn much before, don't worry, I'm going to guide you through it, or we're going to have like a lovely kind of like step-by-step process, but there will be room for lots and lots of creativity and ideas from you guys. So yes, that is very exciting. Before we start, I'd just like to ask if anybody has something that they can draw around to make it a bit easier to draw a circle. One idea would be a mug. If you've got a mug anywhere, you could draw around that, or maybe a roll of tape. Those things are about the right size if you're using paper that's about A4. So just take a second to grab that. If you don't feel confident drawing a circle, because it can be quite hard if you're not used to drawing things in general. Now I'm just going to change my camera over to the one I'm using. Okay, cool. Here I am. So while you guys are maybe scrambling around looking for a cup or similar, I'm just going to talk to you about some of the things that I've been looking at in these tapestries, which I want to sort of try and capture in our illustration. So this one is one of my favorite things I've sing. You can see up above them, you see those like golden arch window things. They're sort of, let me get my little pointer, like these sort of windows are quite similar to the ones that we just saw in the wheelbarrow. They're not exactly the same, but they're not far off. And this sort of design, sort of almost like Gothic-y design, was very popular in all of these tapestry designs and any like medieval illustration, really popular. So I'm going to be showing you how to draw something not quite like that, but actually I've worked out how to draw the one that we saw in the wheelbarrow just now. So that'll be fun. We can put that in. And also I want to look at so this one as well. This has a very similar design in the window bit above them, so we're going to work elements of this illustration into what we're doing, and likewise this one as well, quite similar. So yeah, there's like a strong theme of this sort of amazing architecture above the figures. And yeah, so let's get started. Hopefully some of you have a round thing of some kind. Or if you're brave, you can just try and draw a circle freehand. But I'm just gonna, let's just make my camera bigger for now. Put it over here, there we go. Right, so to start off with, I am just going to show you how we're going to start off the sort of sketch for the window. So I'm going to put my final illustration over here, but while I'm explaining things, I'm going to do some sketches on this side. So I've got my coffee cup here. It's a bit grubby, but it's not gonna leak onto my work. So what I want you to do to start with is, if you're using a piece of paper that's like portrait format, like straight up and down like this, imagine this is your piece of paper. Get your mug and put it quite near the top. You see mine is, if I just zoom out a little bit so I can show you where mine is. So mine is almost at the top of my page. Now a little bit more. There you go. So you can see. So here's my page, top and bottom, and it's almost at the top there. So what I want you to do is draw around it, but do it really lightly. Ideally, use a pencil or something, maybe like a light colored color pencil if you have that. And just draw really, really lightly like that. So while I'm sketching that out for you, I'm going to explain it. I'm going to do it in a colored crayon that you can see very clearly. All right, so I just want like a semicircle. Can you see that? I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see very, very clearly what I'm doing, because this is probably the most complicated bit, which is why we're doing it first. There you go. Okay. So hopefully everyone has a circle. Got that one. There we go. Straighten that up. And when you've done that, I want you to divide it in half. So very lightly again. So I'm doing it in crayon, but I want you to do it very lightly in pencil. I'm just doing it in crayon so you can see what I'm doing really clearly. So divide it in half. When you have divided it in half, there's one more little sort of calculation you have to do. This is the only mathematical sort of bit. I'm not a mathematical kind of person. This is just so we can make it look really nice and symmetrical. So now I want you to divide that into thirds. So between the top and the bottom here, dividing it into thirds. Doesn't have to be too precise, but you can see there, see that's not that precise. So do it very lightly in pencil. All of this should be something you can rub out. So that's in thirds from this sort of half of the circle to the top there. And then when you've done that, just one more, just take this measurement here and just do another notch up there that's about the same as the one we've got. So now we've got sort of 4 blomp, 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 4 equal sized heighted things. Okay, so I hope everyone's with me so far. I can't, I'm not actually looking at everyone's faces, but I can see a few people nodding, which is nice. Right, so the next thing we're going to do, I'll do this in another color so you can see it, but again, you know, keep all this in your pencil, is I want you to do a circle from the top blob to the sort of 1, 2 down. So if you can draw, you can probably draw this freehand because it's a bit smaller, but we're doing a circle that makes those 2 marks meet like that. Everyone with me? Hopefully that's clear. And now I want you to do another circle, the same size, again in pencil, keep it nice and light, roughly the same size, and it should start about where this bottom third is, and it should just sort of fill up this space here. So it doesn't matter if it goes outside the circle a little bit, but let's just pop a circle there, like that. And you're doing all this in pencil. Mine's a little bit smaller, but that doesn't matter. It's still going to be fine. And then another one on the other side. We're nearly there now. There we go. And we're just sort of recreating this pattern as best I could from looking at it in the wheelbarrow, but in a sort of nice to look at way. And now the last bit we're going to do is just half a circle, which is going to be like that. Okay. And on the other side, just half a circle, about the same size. So hopefully you've got all this now in pencil. And I'm just going to quickly pop it on my main image so that I can do it in the main illustration. So if you haven't yet managed to do all that, just quickly get that done while I just sketch this out. I'm doing it very lightly, like I said. There. So I want to be able to rub this out, you see, and have it all look like I magically drew it by hand. So that's probably quite hard to see unless I zoom out, isn't it? Right. Okay. Right, so now the next bit, I can show you on this one now because I've got that sketched now. Add a little blob just above the top of your top circle, just like a little dot here, just a little way above it. And now we've got all the main elements. So what we're going to do is join them up. I'm going to do it quite hard. If you want to sketch it quite lightly, that is fine. You don't have to sort of press as hard as I am. So we're going to go from this little blob and trace around that circle like that. And don't forget, it's fine to do it lightly. Do it on the other side there. Don't worry if it's not quite symmetrical. It's not the end of the world. We're going to put lots and lots of fun detail and stuff on here, so it should be absolutely fine. And now we're going to go around this second curve until it meets the other circle there. And right, and now around the second curve on the other side. Some of you Speedy Gonzales may have skipped ahead and traced them all, which is fine. And now around the last one here. And the last one down here. And that is roughly the same sort of configuration that we saw in the wheelbarrow, albeit maybe simplified a little bit. But yeah, it's really exciting to sort of learn how to draw something like this, because trying to draw something like this freehand is I mean, I've been doing it now all afternoon, but it still doesn't look very good if I try and do it freehand, whereas this has that lovely sort of structure and symmetry that plays off really nicely against those sort of medieval cartoony illustrations that we're going to be doing. It's such a nice contrast. So that's what we're putting in, and this is in honor of what they found on the site, which is so exciting. So now we've done this, the next bit to do, if I just sort of show you on the right hand side here. So we've got our thing, So the next bit is basically to sort of trace around the edge of it like that. So to do that, put a little point, again, a little bit above there. And we're just going to smoothly just practice maybe on a scrap bit of paper. You can just practice sort of smoothly moving your hand in a curve like that before you go for it, because it can be quite hard. Or you can sort of sketch it gently if you're more confident doing that. Either way is absolutely fine. So we're going to go around and we're going to sort of follow this line, try and stay a roughly even distance from the circles. Just rub that out and come away a bit there. There we go. So I've got one side done now, and the other side come like this. So now we've got a lovely sort of pointy arch window thing, and the last little bit, if you put a little line up at the top there, put that there, and just take it down like that. And then we can do another sort of border. And you can really do, I mean, I've run out of space at the top here because I have gone quite high, but that is all right. You can really do, like, you could keep drawing extra little borders around it if you want to make it fancy, if you have space. If not, like, even just one is fine. And then if you want to, like, really add those nice little details from the one we saw, it has these sort of little triangle-y bits like that. I might have a picture of it actually in my thing. Let's see if I can show you. There it is. So if you look at that, you see those little bits where, like, these here, these little triangle bits. So circle that there. So that's what I'm trying to put in at the moment. Those little there we go. So these, like that, you can put those in, draw those. And now we've got a nice little recreation there, which is fun. So now we have that. And the next step will be just to sort of take it down to the down the page like this. I'm drawing a straight line freehand, but by all means use another piece of paper or a ruler. Anything you have that's got a straight edge will suffice for that. I might even use a crayon here like that. There we go. Trying to keep it parallel with my page. Cool. And the other side there, just so we've got that border. I like that when I'm using a crayon or something random as a ruler, I like to put my pencil where I want the line to start first, and then line the crayon up so that I know I'm going to get, like, the right width. Right. I'll just sort of finish those lines down here. Right. So now this is going to be the sort of main feature in my illustration thing. I'll zoom back out now. We've seen the complicated bits. So now I just want to quickly show you some of these amazing figures again, which is going to be inspiring what we're going to be drawing. So let's just turn off that pointer. Okay. So one of the tapestries I was looking at was the Bayeux tapestry. And the thing that really inspired me about this one is you can see sort of that the figures are, like, they're all a little bit, like, wonky and expressive, and they've got sort of brightly colored outlines in red and black. But one of the things about when they were making these, they didn't have, like, unlimited threads. They weren't able to just sort of go to a sewing shop and, you know, have a shelf full of hundreds and hundreds of colors and just pick out as many as they wanted. You know, that this bit of the tapestry, they're just working in green and gold and red and black and, like, a little bit of gray blue. That's about five colors, more or less, maybe 6 in places. But this is a thing that we use in painting as well. It's called a limited palette. And when you don't use hundreds and hundreds of colors, when you just use a few colors, it makes a bit of sort of color harmony in your picture, because all of the colors work together when you're just using a few and the same colors appear all over your image. It makes it sort of hang together and just look really, like, harmonious and like a sort of a real illustration that has its own like character and feel to it. So, I mean, I've got here a big set of colored pencils. I've got lots and lots of colors, but I'm going to choose like 5 to use to color this because I want mine to have a similar feel. And it doesn't matter what colors. Some of these tapestries are like very, very like red and gold and rich. So if you want to do some of your window tracery elements in gold and you want to do the background in red and stuff like that, absolutely, like feel free. That will look really cool. That will look very sort of authentic, like this one we're looking at. And I think it's a little bit like the one that was that we saw hanging up that had a hole cut out for the door. Or you could use like more sort of muted earth tones like this one, which is another bit of the Bayeux tapestry. You know, lots of sort of dark greens and browns and stuff. Here's a really fun close-up. Look at these faces. I mean, these are just incredible. They look like, you know, if Quentin Blake kind of said something. It's very cool. That horse's face over on the right, I just love it. Like, they're so cartoony and expressive. And here are some incredible faces that I've pulled out of a few of the tapestries that we've been looking at. So what I want to do next is we're going to draw a self-portrait into the illustration, into this sort of tapestry inspired illustration we're doing. Jane Byrne, who asked about the name of it, I'm not sure exactly which one that one is, but if you Google Opus Anglicanum, I'll just write that in the chat. Opus Anglicanum, it should come up. It's I think it's quite a famous one in that genre. I think that's the name of the genre of tapestry. So I'm going to show you guys how to sort of start with drawing yourself as a figure into this. So just switch my camera around again. Here we go. Right. So let's just make this a bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll just move this over. So first of all, if you decide what you want to be doing, so I decided when I was making my notes to draw myself in as a little sort of medieval figure like this. They're wearing these, just show you that tapestry again. They're wearing these lovely long robe things, cloaks. I'm not sure, but whatever you call them, men and women and everyone is wearing it. And the really useful thing about them is it means you don't have to draw loads and loads of details on the body. And if you're not, I mean, I draw bodies all the time. It's like what I do. But if you don't have a lot of experience drawing bodies, this will save you quite a lot of effort if you put yourself in one of these like lovely medieval cloaks. If you want to draw yourself wearing the clothes that you're actually wearing, and you want to draw that sort of body with trousers or a skirt or something more modern, that's absolutely fine. You can do that. I can show you how. But yeah, I'm going to draw myself wearing one of these funky cloaks because I want it to look like a combination of authentic for then and like sort of now. So I'll just put my slide back on again. So there we go. To start this off, I'm going to start off with the head. And to draw the head, I'm going to put it sort of like this, because sometimes in these you saw that people were in these arches or these spaces in the tapestry, and they'd be sort of like crammed, like almost like bent in, like the artist didn't quite have enough space to sort of get the picture in among the arch and everything. So sometimes the heads were off at funny angles, which I really love. It's very very of its time. So if you want to put your head at a funny angle, that's good. To draw the head, I'm just going to show you over here so you can see. I'm going to do, if you draw like very lightly in pencil, I'm doing it dark so you can see. If you draw an oval like that, and that will be like the basis of your head, you can do it at an angle or you can do it more straight if you want to, but the angle is quite fun. And then I'll just do this in crayon so you can see the sort of steps. We need to decide basically on this head where the eyes go, because we want to have a combination of like kind of, you know, like a realistic-ish drawing and also the style that they did. So I'll pull up these faces so we've got some inspiration here. So move that over and zoom in again. Right, okay, so you can see the camera and you can see all these lovely faces over here. So I'm gonna just draw a line a little above where the halfway point is on this oval. If you just sort of put a line very lightly in your pencil, and then if you put another little line like that for the mouth, that's going to be where your mouth is, maybe a bit higher. And then just a little tiny line here. I'll do that one in blue so you can see. So these very lightly in pencil, just to sort of help you position the features as you start to draw them. Now I'll do this a little bit bigger so you can see exactly what I'm doing as I do it. So I've got my right. So when you've sort of decided what angle your features are going to be at, we can sort of start drawing each feature. And as you can see, if you look at these faces, these are so cartoony. They're so fun and they're so distinctive. So I'm going to try and draw an eye a little bit like the ones here. And, oh, how do you scale a figure in this space? Good question. If you draw your head and you've got a good amount of room underneath for a body, so for mine, if I put a head in, I've got loads of space underneath for a body. But if you put a kind of zoom that out so you see. Okay, so if you draw in your head and then you've got maybe like proportionally like 5 or 6 more heads worth of space underneath, if that makes sense. We're only going to draw one figure, sadly, because we've only got such limited time. But if you want to draw 2 figures in, you can leave space for another one. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing by any means. It's absolutely fine. So I'd say draw in like a kind of account for a space of about sort of 7 heads worth of height. You don't have to count it exactly, like it doesn't matter if it's a little bit short. These figures are incredibly like random in their proportions. But we're just going to draw the face and sort of get that, make sure that that is nice. Now to do these eyes, a lot of them have these eyes that are quite unusual. They're sort of, if you draw a little bit of a straight line like that, and then they sort of go up a little bit and then down a little bit like that. So you could roughly draw an oval if you want, and then sort of straighten out the bottom of it and do it within that oval. So if you roughly sketch out a very light oval on top of your line where the eyes are going to go there, then you know where the eyes are going to be and you know you're going to get them kind of straight and in the right place. So we can draw a line here, up and then down, and then a line here, and then up and then down. If you're drawing a sort of 3/4 view like this, the one on the far side might be a little bit smaller, but if it's not going to look out of place because these are so cartoony. And then we can draw the face looking somewhere. So all these guys seem to be like looking off at something. So we can decide what we want it to be looking at. Now, in this one that I'm doing, I've decided to draw myself holding something that's meaningful to me. And you could decide what you want to be holding or what you want to be doing in your picture. But I'm going to draw some arms. I'm going to show you how to draw some arms that are holding something. So if you have maybe like a cat, or if you really like books, or if you play a musical instrument, or I happen to really, really like plants. So I'm going to draw myself holding a little plant. In fact, I'm going to draw myself holding this plant here. Because 2 days ago, I came into my studio and I found it almost dead, completely wilted, because I had been away for 4 days and it had been sitting in the sun. And I'm going to draw myself looking sad. Like you see all these guys in the and girls, they all look a bit sad. They all look a bit grumpy. So I've decided to have myself holding something that's going to be making me be like, oh, look at these like incredible expressions. So I don't know, like maybe if you're holding something that makes you a bit sad, or you could just be holding something that you enjoy doing and pulling a funny face. So we've drawn our eyes, and I'm going to draw the eyes looking down at the thing I'm holding, like that. Very cartoony. And now the next thing I want to draw before the nose is the mouth. And if you look at all these mouths, I don't know if you don't have to draw yourself pulling this funny face. But if you do, it will look super fun, and you can explain to everyone why and show them some of these pictures. So it's sort of like up a bit and then across like that and then down. It's really sort of exaggerated on some of them and less on others, but I'm going to do that. And then just underneath that, we're going to get a little line like this. And that's, I think, sort of to represent the bit like where your lip meets the sort of bit of your chin there, as though you're really like pouting. And then we're going to do the nose. And to do that, I usually draw the bottom of it first so that I know where on the face it's going to be. So if you're confident drawing, you can try and do like a little bump and then a nostril like that. Or you can just do a plain end like that. It's up to you. There's lots of different sort of noses on these guys. So we can do any. So I'm just going to do that with a little bump. Quite narrow. All of these noses are narrow, so don't make this too wide. Definitely keep it quite narrow. And we're going to take it up like that. And it's going to meet an eyebrow. So it's up to you what the expression is, but we're going to keep the eyebrow very thin. And I'm going to draw my eyebrow like this because I'm upset about my dead plant. And then you can give yourself a matching eyebrow on the other side. I'm really looking at that sort of little king guy on the bottom left as I'm doing these. Lovely. If you want to draw another line coming down to the other side of your nose, you can do that as well, but you don't have to. So now I've showed you how to draw the features on this face. I'm just going to quickly sketch it out over here and draw it in. So you guys can, if you haven't done it over here yet already, you can do. So, oh no, my plant is dead. Luckily, it did come back to life with a really good watering. These plants are just drama queens, little pink polka dot plants. So I'm just drawing that little mouth there. And to draw the edge of the face, you really just want to sort of trace around this oval. So if you come down here, you know, this is super stylized like these. I mean, a lot of these people have beards, and if you don't have a beard, obviously, you know, don't draw one. If you do have one, you can add that in there. They're quite similar for the male and female faces. So I'm just going to take the line up like that. And you can add your hair. Not sure what hairstyle you have. You can put mine like that. Yeah, like that. So I'm just going to do this. And then you can put an ear just about here. Just draw a little circle for the ear like that. Maybe like if you sort of follow that eye line round, it will end with an ear down there like that. So I'll put my ear in. Oh no. Okay. And if you want to be super fancy, you could give yourself a little crown like they've got. So if you want to add a crown, you can do I'll do it in a color so you can see it nice and clear. You can draw a circular band around the head there like that. And then another one above it. So that really makes it look as though the crown is sort of wrapping around your head. If you draw a straight line, it looks as though the head is more flat than it really is. And let's rub this out while I show you the sort of shortcut to a type of crown you can draw quite easily. If you draw above your crown, this is quite an easy way of kind of getting a crown down quite quickly. If you draw a few diamonds like that, there's just something really funny about like these people in crowns who sort of looking like kings and queens, and then with all their like grumpy little faces. Really love it. So when you've done those diamonds, you can then change them into sort of like those gem vibes. So if you go like that, and then like that. So we're just sort of putting some curves in between them and then leaving it blank at the bottom. So that's how I'm gonna draw a crown on this figure. See, just turned those diamonds, just sort of curved the edges of them a bit. Oops, there we go. And you can even like draw little gemstones in the middle as well if you want. And then just join it up to that band you've drawn. You could put little things in between as well if you want to be very fancy. So that's how I would construct a crown. Obviously, you can do something different if you like. So I'm just gonna rub out a bit here and put that on. Oh. There we go. Now I am King Aaron with a sad face. So when you've drawn most of your face, what I'm going to do with the jaw here, to sort of keep it in that style, I'm not going to take the jaw all the way up to the ear. And what we're going to do is take the neck and put it at one of those. You see that old man on the top left? I quite like the way his neck is sort of angled. So I'm going to draw two lines like that, one coming out from just behind the ear and one coming out from under the jaw. And this is where it's going to meet the body. Like that. So I'm going to take that there and draw these lines. Hopefully this isn't too complicated. I really hope that some of you have a face you're happy with now, and potentially a crown as well. So now we're going to fit in the body. And if you also want to draw yourself wearing one of these fun robe things, it's really, I'll just make this a bit bigger so we can see it more clear. Maybe each one of those guys. So you can see one of those robe things on the right now as we come to do this. So for the body, I mean, if you're tall, you know, maybe you can make this taller. This is really up to you. But basically, where your head, where the front of your head is and where the back of your head is, this is going to be your body. We're just going to be sort of standing at a 3/4 angle. I'm quite short, so I'm just going to kind of take mine down to about here. And I might flare this robe out a little bit that I'm wearing. So funky. But just make sure that the head is sort of, the head and the neck are sort of in the center. Don't have it too far forward or too far back, or it'll look as though the figure is kind of leaning in a funny way. You can keep adding width if you want to sort of flare the robe out, that's fine too. So having decided my height and the sort of width of the robe thing I'm wearing, what I'm going to do is at the bottom, I'll show you a sketch to sort of help you draw the bottom of that. If you draw very lightly, a nice curve like this, so that's going to be like the bottom of the hem of it. And then I'm going to do it in crayon so you can follow along, just do it very lightly in pencil and then you can go over it. So draw some very shallow, almost like a little smile, if you were drawing smiles, and do them a little bit apart like that. I'm going to do 3 of them. So 1 at each end. If this is the end of the robe thing, we have 1 at each end and then a little gap in between. And in the little gap, get your pencil very lightly again and just draw a little upside down smile. Look like you were slightly sad, you know? Little curve like that, and a little curve like that. And when we've done that, this is a nice little trick to drawing any hem, actually. If you're wearing a skirt, you can draw a skirt like this. It's notoriously hard. And then we're going to take the lines up from the end of each of those sort of smiley bits, like that. And then we will have something that looks like a nice draped cloak. So I'm going to do that over here with my little figure. Let's just take those. Smile, smile, smile. Anti-smile, anti-smile. And now I know that I can take those lines up and that like this. I have my funny little cloak thing. So I've sketched that out. And maybe I'll just make myself a bit smaller so you can see the bottom. Right. So when you have that successfully done, now let's think about what we're holding. So as I said, I'm going to be holding my poor plant. So what we want to do is get these arms drawn, and there's no real hard trick to drawing the arms, especially if you're wearing something that's sort of a bit drapey. So what I want you to do is just decide what you want to hold and how you would hold it. Like if it's something you can just hold out in front of you, you can just sort of do a very light, like curve for the arms, like that, maybe with a sort of slight corner to it. So we're going to sketch out basically like the skeleton of the arm before we try and draw it. And this is a really useful trick for any kind of drawing people at all. It's really useful for legs. Like if you were going to draw yourself wearing actual clothes, what you could do is just kind of like block out the body very, very lightly, and then draw your legs very lightly in a sort of stick figure form almost, like that. And then after that, you can flesh out, like once you've decided on the structure of the legs, you can flesh out and sort of put yourself in your outfit that you want to wear, like that. So there's a little person wearing a pair of trousers that we've just drawn over that stick figure. And that's what I'm doing here when I'm sort of just deciding where I want my arms to be. Now I know the structure of them before I go and draw the sort of fabric and the clothes around them and everything, the hand. So I'm going to draw this, and as I come to this corner here, I'm going to do a couple of little bumps like that to sort of show that the fabric is kind of wrinkled at the elbow. Take it up like that. And actually, before I go too high, I'm just going to rub this out. And one nice thing about these is some of them have this like weird hem thing at the top instead of like a neckline. So I'm going to draw that, which I should have drawn first. So if you want to draw this as well, it will make your life quite easy because you won't have to draw any of the sort of complicated neck thing. So you can draw a line like that that just sort of cuts off the neck with a bit of a curve because it's round. So a nice smile curve like that. And then just outside of the line of the back of it, we're going to take it down like that because it sort of overlaps a little bit. And the same at the front. And then we can take it up like that. A little bit off there. So that is my sort of neck collar thing. And their ones have a lovely pattern, which is very easy to draw. I'm going to put that on. Very nice. And now I'm just going to finish off that arm that's coming out from underneath it. So like that. I'm going to give myself quite baggy sleeves like that. So if you've got your skeleton coming out like that, you can just take the sleeve down and make it a bit baggier. And now we're going to draw a hand holding whatever it is you want to hold. And to draw the hand, they've got lovely stylized hands on these. A lot of them are very sort of long and slender, long fingers. They're really cool. So I'll show you a little hand drawing trick here. So my hands are going to be wrapped, sort of holding a plant pot. So I'll do it in crayon so you can see, and you can do this in pencil. If you want to have your hand holding something, especially something that's sort of round or something like that, you can draw, this is like the body of the hand here. You can sort of draw a little shape for that. And then the fingers, it's really hard to draw fingers. If you just start drawing fingers freestyle, they can go all over the place like a bunch of bananas. But with these, sometimes in these illustrations, they're sort of grouped together and they're very long. So if you make them, put a long shape out like that from the main hand bit you've done, and just sort of make it maybe like that, like a sort of nice slightly curved shape, because obviously fingers when they're holding things, they're curving around like that. And then you can just divide it up. You can half it like that, and then half it again and half it again. And that's similar to like a stylized hand in some of these illustrations. If you want to draw the thumb as well, you can just sort of take a little bit out of this shape here and draw that. So that's the sort of bit where the thumb comes out. And then you can put a nice long thumb on as well. And that will suffice for a hand holding something like a plant pot or a cap or a musical instrument or a plate of food if you enjoy cooking, something like that. So I'm going to just put on that there. I'm not going to put any wrist coming out really. It's just going to be my hand. Group those fingers together. If you want to just give yourself 3 fingers, you can as well. You know, that's quite a common way as well to stylize illustrations. Nobody has time to be embroidering all of the fingers sometimes. There we go. You could even give yourself a fun cuff to match the collar there. That. Very nice. How stylish, look at that. So now I can complete the drawing of this cloak thing that I'm wearing, having saved myself all of the effort of drawing an entire outfit of clothes and trousers and goodness knows what potential mistakes drawing the legs in a hurry you might come across. And I'm just going to give myself a little pair of feet here. So if you just draw a little pair of very easy to draw feet, you can just draw one slightly in front and one behind, standing there. They should be like roughly under the head to make it really look as though this figure is standing standing up. Mine are actually a little bit too far forward, so I'll move them back. So if they're under the head, it'll look much more convincing in terms of like the placement of the figure being standing there. And now I don't know what you guys want to draw, but hopefully you can draw, maybe you have it to look at, but just think about like stylizing it a little bit. Don't try and draw it like sort of photorealistically with every detail. If you were drawing a cat, for example, I would draw a very light circle like this, and then maybe another little circle to represent the body, and maybe draw your sort of cartoony eyes, little nose quite high up, and then your ears like that. If you wanted a cat in your arms, and there's the fingers. That. So I'm going to draw my poor dead plant. There's the pot. And here is my wilted plant. So glad it's okay. So again, I'm stylizing this a lot, as everything was in those days. Really beautiful effects. So hopefully you have a good amount of that done, and we can start to think about the pattern and color and stuff. So just show you again, like deciding on sort of colors and borders and things. So these ones have really exciting borders going on, where if you have some space to the sides and you have a ruler or something, you can put, you'd think I would have a ruler handy in an entire studio. Right, so found a really impractical ruler. So I'm just drawing a line. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just drawing a border just outside of my window thing, like that. You can split it in two if you want. Or maybe I'll just do one actually. Yeah, I'd say just like one layer of border. So I'll just take that outside line away. So draw one in between that, so it's the that one. So just decide how thick you want it to be, because we're going to think about putting some patterns in it. Just make that a bit darker on this side. Okay. One of the other elements of this, you could have it carrying on like that. And then if you want to put any sort of patterns in here, you can do that. But that is absolutely up to you, because this bit could get very time consuming if we draw a lot of stuff there. So I'm just going to put in that other side there. That. I'll probably rub that. Yeah, I'll have that overlapping. So I'm going to put this border behind the little pokey uppy bit, just because this is mine and it can look as distinctive as I want. So I'm going to draw that there. So now we've got our borders and we've got our figure. I want you guys to just think about colours. So for this, I think I might use this brown. I'm going to use a yellow, use a red. I'm just going to have a few colours, maybe blue. And if you've got a bit of scrap paper somewhere, what you can do is just, I mean, you're welcome to use more colours if you want, but if you want to sort of have a limited palette to sort of look a little bit more like a sort of authentic illustration, what you can do is choose a few colours and then see how they look together. Just put a little patch of each one down next to each other. So that's quite a nice set. I wonder if that needs one more thing, maybe like a dark colour somewhere, maybe a darker bluey green, bluey grey even. So I think, unless I use red, no, I think that's good. So I'm going to do mine in these 4 colours. These are quite cool. So what I can do is actually close that off up here. So that's the 4 corners there. And if you do want to put a pattern in the border, if you colour it in with a lighter colour, so I could use this gold, for example, to colour the border. I'm using the side of the crayon, you get a really nice sort of quick, thick filling. And these ones on their one are different colours. So, for example, I could make the other one red if I wanted. But I think I'll probably stick with gold on both sides just for consistency in mine. So if we're using a light colour, it means we can go over the top with the pattern. So now I can get maybe my red. And to do this pattern, it's actually super easy. I probably don't need to explain it to you, but you can just do a little wavy pattern like that. Pressing nice and hard because I'm fairly confident drawing a simple wavy line. There we go. And I mean, that's on the other side on this one, that's fine. And I'm going to draw these little extra blobs as well. So that's from the left-hand side in their one, but I'm just putting it here. This would be really nice with felt tips, I think, as well, if you've got a light felt tip to use. I'm really looking forward to seeing what colours you've chosen and what everyone has drawn themselves holding. And I hope everyone enjoyed drawing the funny cloak thing. Can one of the big ventures guys tell me how long I have left?
About 5 minutes.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's good. So now we can decide on, so I'm going to make the robe this gold as well. I mean, you guys will obviously be able to sort of color them in afterwards as well, because we've done the bulk of the work here with the drawing. And I really hope that you've learned a little bit about drawing figures, maybe drawing faces if you haven't drawn many faces before. This technique doesn't just go for cartoon faces. This will work for drawing any face, just laying out the direction of the features and where they are on the face before trying to draw those details. So got that now. And if you want to make it sort of have that authentic feel, maybe if you want it to look like a tapestry, one thing you could do is to outline all of the outlines in one color, especially if you've got a pen. So if I was to outline all of the outlines in red, for example, to sort of look like the red stitching, that would be quite cool. So I might think about doing that. Just put that like this. Right now, time to do all of that, but you get the gist. Maybe I'll just go around the outside. So it's really useful if you've got that in pencil first, you can easily see where to go. Nice. That. Okay, so now I'm going to think about some more colors on this. So maybe I'll put that orange in the background of my hem. You can leave if you want to paint in the background in a color, or sorry, color in the background in a color, you could even leave the face white, or I've got like a light yellow here that I might color it in with. And to color in the tracery here on this window, I'm just going to take that line down to the bottom. Turn my light. Okay. So to color in this, you can sort of pick a color. We don't have to make it like the same color of the one they found. I might use blue for this. And then if I also put the blue on this color here, that will look really nice. Just sort of having the same colors echoing around the image there. Can just see those circles underneath, but that is fine because once I color in that background, they will disappear. And also they'll disappear if you outline it in brightly colored felt tip as well. I could even color the background in red actually, and then it would look like that beautiful red and gold tapestry. So I'm coming down here with that now. I give myself little blue shoes to match the funny little collar and cuffs. And just do a little bit more outlining on these. I really like the way things look when they're all outlined in the same color, because it's another thing that really pulls an illustration together and makes it look like it has a style and a sort of time of its own. Let's draw my sad little plant. Okay. I'm dying to see what everyone has done. Very exciting. Sad little face. And just put that hair behind the crown. Okay. So this will take me another minute or two to finish. In the meantime, is there anything Dig Ventures would like to say to finish up, so that you guys can sort of finish your coloring, maybe show some of them to everyone? I'm not sure what I think I'm out of time now. I don't want to hold up everyone's night.
And it's looking good. I've been doing mine. Does anyone else want to hold theirs up to the camera?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
My cat as well.
Oh.
Should we go on gallery view and have a look at everyone's? So if everyone pops himself on gallery view. Oh wow.
I want to see.
Oh, there's some really good ones here. Oh wow.
Oh
That's
my
really interesting
god.
angle. Oh, I love them. Well
They
done.
look incredible.
They look so good with everyone holding them up
Oh,
as
they
well.
look so good. I want to zoom in and see everyone's and I can't. Wow.
Amazing. I'm scrolling.
And these figures, they're really, really well drawn. It looks like the technique has like worked really well for you guys, because they look splendid.
Amazing.
Wow. And the windows all look so good as well. Oh, cool.
Well done, Aaron. That's just a testament. You've done a fantastic job.
Oh, I'm so pleased. I want to see them close up.
Well,
Can we
I have
highlight
more
people?
information on that. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen one last time before we say goodbye. So everyone can see this. I'll put my PowerPoint on again. So thank you everyone for coming. Feel free to stick around if you want to show off some of your drawings. We'll hang around for a minute if anyone wants to come up and show theirs a bit closer. But even though our trenches are closing this week, this isn't the end of our events. You can check up, we've got some more upcoming. You can see them on the calendar if you go to digventures.com/calendar. We have an event on medieval architecture where we're getting a very special guest as well to come in and tell us a bit about architecture, some of the deeper meanings behind them. And also we have our Finds Room Live where we're going to show some of our medieval artifacts, talk about how they might relate to the history of the bishops, that sort of thing. It's going to be really fun, a great way to round off. And of course, there's loads more coming in future as well. So keep an eye on that calendar if you want to see what else we get up to. If you'd like to support Dig Ventures even more, you can become a subscriber. If you go to digventures.com/subscribe, you can see all our plans. You get different benefits, including priority access and exclusive events. And it just brings you even closer to the action. So it's great, I would recommend. And this is what I was going to mention. If you want to share your art with us, we're on Twitter at the Dig Venturers. And of course, you can email it to us as well at hello@digventures.com. Don't worry if you don't catch any of these, by the way. This will be on the recording as well, so you'll be able to get any email addresses or anything you miss. If you really enjoyed having Aaron today, I know I did. He did an amazing job. You can check out some of his work on that website there, idrew.eu. And of course, don't forget to check out Discover Brightwater as well at discoverbrightwater.com. So one more time, thank you all